In this episode, I have the pleasure of talking with Sadie St. founder and CEO of Women in Data. One of my favorite things about Sadie is her passion for creating community and breaking down barriers for opportunities in the tech world.
One of the things about change that's really hard to understand is when you zoom out, you can see it happening rapidly, but when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to really feel it.
Join us as we talk about the importance of teaching data literacy, combating implicit bias in AI, and the importance of representation for women in tech. This is Navigating Abroad. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our LinkedIn Live for Season 2 of Navigating Abroad. I think we've all noticed a lot of volatility in the tech industry these last week or so, and I would really love to share this episode with you because I think Sadie is really a visionary for how do we create a more collaborative future by leveraging data to increase opportunities for everyone. And I hope that this information gives you the tool set to think about how you can be using data in your life to be able to get the outcomes that you're looking for your career, for your family, and for yourself. So thank you for joining us today. I'm Lisa Fee, the Data for Good sector lead at Launch Consulting. This season, we're sticking a little closer to home, but thinking just as big, harnessing the power of data to create a better global community. This is Navigating Abroad. In this episode, I have the pleasure of talking with Sadie St. founder and CEO of Women in Data. One of my favorite things about Sadie is her passion for creating community and breaking down barriers for opportunities in the tech world. Join us as we talk about the importance of teaching data literacy, combating implicit bias in AI, and the importance of representation for women in tech. Sadie, so wonderful to see you here in Napa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, Lisa. Anytime talking to you is just a delight.
Ditto. So, Sadie, you have your hands in so many interesting things. And whenever I think about these new emerging technologies like smart cities and Web3, you're always my go-to gal because you keep me current. Can you talk a little bit about some of the trends that you're seeing happening with NFTs and some of the really interesting experiences we're all about to have in this new reality we're stepping into?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of talk recently about the metaverse, right? And we're going to be spending all of our time in this virtual reality. And I think it's really important to realize how much of our time is already spent in a digital space. So the average American spends 7 hours of their day looking at a screen. Right? That's on average. I'm sure if you're working from home, you're probably I'm spending a lot more. Yeah. So I think it's important to understand that our world is already split between spending our time in a digital world, whether that's looking at a screen like this or if in VR we put it up here, right? Yeah. But either way, we're already spending a majority of our time in a digital world. And so when we talk about the metaverse, essentially what we're saying is more of that time is going to be in a digital world, and how we interact is going to continually, increasingly become digital, right? By the way we share, by the way we have e-commerce, and whether that be through a cryptocurrency that we use, whether that be through data sharing and we have ownership to it tied to NFTs and tokens, or whether that just be how we interact and play. And so I think, one of the things about change that's really hard to understand is when you zoom out, you can see it happening rapidly, but when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to really feel it. Yep. And so I think it's important for all of us to kind of recognize that we're already slowly emerging into this more engulfed digital world. And some of those key technologies that will propel us there are blockchain, AI, and what we'll be doing with these technologies.
So Sadie, I know for Women in Data, it's been important to be helping people move through these changes in a coordinated way. And one of the things I was really excited about as a member was we have now been issued NFTs. Can you talk a little bit about the blockchain technology underneath an NFT and then what an NFT is, just to demystify that for some of our audience that maybe isn't as familiar yet?
Yeah. So, a lot of people are familiar with blockchain from cryptocurrencies, right, and have rode the market of the highs and lows. But if you dive a little bit deeper than that, essentially it's just a ledger, and it's a digital ledger, and that ledger gets tied together by bits of information, which we call them blocks, that get tied together. So everything has a record. And one of the exciting things about this is if you step back, it really is just a database that's more trusted, secured, and verified. So as somebody with a background in data science and AI, when I made that mirror together, I was like, okay, this makes sense to me. There's a lot of applications for this. And so if you have essentially that ledger, or the blockchain ledger, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. You know, people have now started to build currencies with cryptocurrencies. A lot of people have heard about NFTs, which essentially are a non-fungible token. And so what that means is now you can have like an asset, whether it's a digital piece of art, it could be a physical asset like your house, that's tied to ownership on the blockchain, so tied to ownership of that digital record.
Okay, and in the NFT space, in this emerging digital art world, where I think some of us feel a little bit left behind, like what's going on here? What's exciting to you about the concept of having NFTs and digital art and being able to have something that you can take into this new Web3 environment?
Well, I think the most exciting thing is that it is ownership. And, you know, to really truly understand Web3, it's important to understand where we're at with Web2 right now. So Web2 is essentially you can read and write on the internet. So I can read through my LinkedIn page, and I can also create LinkedIn posts, right? But when I share information on LinkedIn or a social media site, unless I own those servers, I don't own that information. And so what's exciting to me about Web3 and blockchain technology is that essentially because of this technology, we can tie ownership to anything through tokens, and through the blockchain, there will now be a record of this. So something simple of you post your photo from our day-to-day, you know, having this conversation on LinkedIn, someone easily can take that photo and reuse it, can impersonate you, and there's no way to show that you were the original true owner of that. Once you tie that photo to the blockchain and tie it to an NFT, now you actually own your data. And so to me, that's probably the most exciting aspect of this.
I agree with you. So it's almost like a smart contracting capability, and you can create unique and bespoke experiences for people as they're interacting in the digital world, because you can understand IP, you can understand who owns what, and you can identify and elevate experiences for people based on who they are in a personalized way.
Exactly. I think for me, what's exciting is, you know, I fell in love with AI and data science, and one of the things I rapidly saw was certain individuals were benefiting from the use of data, but it wasn't equally distributed, right? There's a lot of companies who own your information, and they benefited greatly from having that information.
You're not paying for the product, you might pay the product.
Yes, exactly. But what we can do now with this technology is now we can actually distribute this ownership. So it may be very small, you know, what ownership of data that you have may not equal to what the amount of money Google makes, right? But at least now we're getting to a more equal distribution of what we can do with this information.
I'm energized around this smart contracting idea because there's so many times that I think we're slowed down in innovation because we are cautious about losing control, or, you know, information is protected for a very good reason. And so you have to make sure that you can create contracts and have lawyers involved and do all those things to make sure that you don't lose your rights. And I think that this is going to be a much more automated and streamlined way of ensuring that and giving people the peace of mind that's necessary to be able to collaborate in a more effective way because they don't have that risk of theft.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, I think a lot of people working in this space see the opportunity. But there's a lot of work still to be done to change. I mean, we're talking about changing systems that have been in place for hundreds of years, right? So there's a lot of work that needs done in terms of the integrations that need to happen to make this possible, the UI and the UX. So I think if someone is interested in this space, like, this is a really exciting time to get into it because the opportunity is really endless in what you can do.
And I know you're really passionate about democratizing access to high-end tech jobs. You yourself was not somebody that probably grew up believing you were going to be a data scientist. Do you mind telling us your journey into data science? How did that evolve for you, and what are you inspired by to see for this next generation coming up?
Yeah, so I laugh because a lot of parents ask me, like, what should I be teaching my kids for the jobs of the future? And I remind them that, like, the term data science didn't even exist when I was a kid. So there's no way my parents would have been able to train me for that. So my journey was a winding journey, like many people, into new emerging technologies. I started off as a piano performance major, then transitioned into psychology and neuroscience. And as I was working in a neuroscience lab, I realized that I didn't want to spend my life killing rats, and I really was a little worried about the prospects of a career in academia. And so what I did was I wrote out what I liked on one side of a piece of paper and what I didn't like about my job on another side. And I looked and said, okay, how do I increase the things I enjoy and decrease the things I don't enjoy? And that, through a Google search, led me to find data science. I loved analysis, I loved statistics, I loved questioning things and using the scientific method. And so from there, it was just, a continual journey of learning. And I think anybody who is in the field of technology will have to embrace that continual journey of learning.
Yeah, if you're a lifelong learner, it's an exciting place to be, because just when you master something, the next trend comes along. And, I think we have the opportunity to address some of those really key challenges that humankind has been dealing with for ineffectively, right? And so what are some of the cool things that you're applying data science to today that is helping to democratize for society, for women in tech, for diverse and marginalized groups? Can you give us some inspirational stories about some of the things that you're working on today?
Yeah, so before we get into the inspiration, you made a really good point about how data science is showing us where these problems have been for a long time. And I know you've done a lot of work with AI safety, and there's been a lot of talk about bias in AI. I think the thing that's most surprising about it is bias in AI is not just bias, but it's bias at scale, right? I'm sure we've all encountered an individual that when we interacted with them, we felt they were biased in their response to us. Now imagine if you could take that one hiring manager who was biased to you and you encode it into an algorithm that was able to be applied to thousands of people, right? So we have a lot of things we need to be cautious about as we move forward with this new technology. And for me, I think the answer really comes down to the people we have leading and building these solutions. And that is why I'm so passionate about increasing diversity in this space, because I think the more we can continue to have diverse minds in the conversations, designing, developing, creating, and leading the solutions, the better the outcomes for everyone in the long term.
A lot of it is lived experience, right? If you have an experienced implicit bias in a job interview process, you may not recognize that by just repeating patterns of what we've seen in terms of successful candidates will not yield us the results that we need in order to build this new world that we're all aging into as we speak. So I think that's a great point. And I think also, to be human is to be biased, and data science is as good as the data that you are feeding into the algorithms in order to make sure that they can do what they do best, which is analysis, understanding patterns, finding correlations, and predicting future outcomes based on what's happened in the past. And if we don't have a broader perspective of the people in the room helping to develop that future, I think we're going to be leaving behind a lot of the folks that could benefit from these disruptions in industries. And I think with Web3 and with blockchain, we have the opportunity to be more inclusive as we are redesigning this world of the future beyond Web 2. So Sadie, I think we all recognize that being in the room to help shape the conversations of product design would benefit from a broader perspective at the table. How is women in data working to prepare the workforce to have more representation?
Yeah, so we look at increasing diversity in data careers through 3 areas, which is awareness, education, and empowerment. And so, all 3 of these are really important. None of them can happen by themselves, and they have to happen working together. So an example of this is from an awareness standpoint, we live in our own vacuum of information. And it's great that we have information widely available to us through the internet, but unfortunately it's run by algorithms, what we past liked and have been recommended in the past. And so we have to be able to break out of this echo chamber that we live in to see the possibility of what's available. And the possibility of what's available is, what jobs and roles are there available for you in technology, and can you see yourself in those roles? So I personally love the quote, "You can't be what you can't see," and I think it really summarizes up awareness perfectly. And so at Women in Data, there's a couple things that we're doing from that standpoint, which is highlighting women in the community, highlighting the work that they're doing, having interviews with people through our podcasting, events through our webinars, having local chapters and community groups, and then also connecting our local communities together as well. So the awareness is really key in helping people see that they can be in this role, in this career and industry. And then from there, we work to educate and upskill. So today it's estimated that 50% of the population will need upskilling by 2025 just to deal with the rapid change in technology. And so we do a variety of programs through learning pathways, residency programs, mentorship, which really helps to bring the community together, but more importantly, provide the right skills. Empowerment is something that I think is different to each individual. What you may need for empowerment is different than what I may need for empowerment. And so I really look at empowerment as coming from a community, and being a part of community helps you have the courage to be able to create. And so to be able to create that empowerment and community, we have local and executive data forum, local community chapters. We also do a mentorship program, just providing ways for one another to be able to connect with each other and create a place that they can feel empowered to live their full purpose.
And how many members do you have today, and where are you represented?
Yeah, so we are a community of over 30,000 people. We have representation in 55 countries. I think the beautiful thing about technology, and particularly data, is it's a common language between countries. And so it's been exciting to be on different Zoom calls and webinars where we're all chiming in from different parts of the world, united with a similar mission and vision.
That is inspirational. Yeah. And so for people that maybe want to learn more but aren't ready to join, to quit their day jobs and become a data scientist, I know you are participatory in self-learning pathways into data and learning more. Can you share a little bit about your course on Coursera for people that might want to dip their toe in the water and get started?
Yeah, so I taught a course, SQL for Data Science. Don't let the title scare you, because over 400,000 people have taken the course, so it's a little bit more approachable than you may think. It's a great way to get experience with the first coding language. I would say that SQL is probably the most approachable language to start using. It's very user-friendly. And then it's just really applicable. I think SQL is the #1 skill requested on a job interview and a tech interview that you'll be trained on. But more importantly, everyone needs to have a level of data literacy as we move forward into a digitalized world. So I think it's a great way to kind of dip your toe in the water, maybe explore a coding language. It's only 4 weeks, so it's a great way to just explore your first language.
I love that concept of making it approachable and accessible. That's something you have to pay for, or is that readily available for the public?
So it's hosted on Coursera. I believe you can get scholarships, and then I think they do it as a subscription that you pay for as well. So.
Okay, very good. And with that in mind, I do agree with you that data literacy is going to be the same way of being able to read written word. It's going to unlock the future for self-learning. And so I think it's really exciting to see how much lifelong learners can continue to build in this space. I didn't even know how to spell AI 6 years ago. It's only 2 letters. It's pretty sad. But I've seen some of the best data scientists that I brought into my companies have really been people that are business leaders that understand how to shape the business problem that we're trying to solve. Because AI is more of a tool than a solution, right? just because you speak French doesn't mean you can write French poetry. So being able to have that creative eye to understand the problems that you're trying to address, understand the ecosystem, if you have that and you understand data, it's really exciting to be able to layer on some new tools to accelerate and automate some of the outcomes that you're looking for in your job.
100%, and I think that's where we're going to see the biggest solution and implementation of AI is when we have business people and give them the tools and the knowledge versus right now we're trying to take technologists and help them to understand the business. And that is why we have 80% of data science and AI projects fail today in business is because they didn't understand what was that business outcome that they're looking to drive. And so I'm actually more passionate about taking people from wherever they are, whether you're in a marketing role, a finance role, an operations role, giving them the data literacy skills, the tooling, because they understand their business and they're going to know where to apply these solutions more. So if you're not in a technology role, don't let it scare you. We need more people and we need that diversity of thought in the creation of these solutions.
And there's a community for you.
Yes.
Because women in data is for everyone, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So obviously there are data leaders and practitioners, but more importantly, there's data citizens. So if you're someone who realizes that, hey, I work with data, whether I read it or write it every day, this is a place for you to come and to connect, to grow, and to be able to lead in your career.
Thank you so much for your time today, Sadie. For people that want to follow your work and learn more about what you're up to these days, do you mind sharing some places they can find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter and on LinkedIn, just at Sadie St. Lawrence. And then would love to also connect with Women in Data at womenindata.org.
Thank you so much for your time today, Sadie.
Thanks, Lisa.
Well, hello there, Mr. Russ Whitman. Thank you for joining us today.
Great to join as well. I'm afraid there might be a lag, but we'll try to catch up. Maybe the internet will catch up to us. What a great interview. Every time I get the opportunity to listen to Sadie, I'm reminded of, really how amazing this movement is and how so many individuals have really paved the way for this massive shift in our daily lives that's on its way due to data science and AI. It's really incredible.
One of my favorite things about being in the physical room with Sadie is at her events, you'll often see lots of men and women. It's a very inclusive environment. So I encourage people to not be deterred. If you want to be an ally, if you want to be part of the solution, everyone's welcome there, which is really cool. So Russ, as the Chief Strategy Officer for Launch Consulting, can you talk a little bit about how you're seeing AI and data being applied by companies today?
Yeah, we're seeing an interesting shift happening. For the last several years, there's been a lot of dipping toes in the water, trials, innovation centers looking at ways to consider what's possible. And today, we're seeing companies actually move into production and application leveraging AI. Part of it is, Sadie mentioned, the tool sets have evolved so significantly. And this business role has really stepped into play where, that citizen developer concept being a sort of a business leader driving and leveraging the tool sets to make change in their organizations. So as companies continue to move down the path of transforming their organizations, leveraging technology, AI has given them the chance to automate many things, and we're seeing lots of automation happening across the board. And there's great tooling that's happening there that is utilizing AI and machine learning to move and make better decisions and more context. But we're starting to see this other really interesting move where products are being more informed through AI or leveraging models that exist in the marketplace to deliver more intentional solutions, more personalized solutions for both customers and employees. And that's where we start seeing really interesting changes. We see the big leaps rather than incremental changes happening in the marketplace. So I think it's this shift into out of maybe innovation and maybe a purely CIO or CTO side of the house, where the business and the market and the CHRO audience is actually going, how can I leverage AI and machine learning to better understand my population and deliver the right services that they need, especially now that we've been forced to transform how we work every day. So those impacts have accelerated that a lot in the last 6 to 12 months.
Couldn't agree more. What skills are you seeing that companies need to leverage in order to make the promise of AI and data science successful in their implementations?
Well, first of all, there's a need for everybody to understand and be data literate. That's just a reality that can't be just thrown off to the side to the data scientists, those smart folks in the back room. We all have to understand the importance of data and the importance of securing and tracking and making sure we're being smart with how we use our data so that we can have that implemented. So on the business side, we're sort of moving upstream in terms of the organizations having to understand more about how these technologies work, how they interplay, and versus just knowing that we have a product, they have to understand how it becomes what it is. But on the craft side, on the people that are implementing AI and leveraging data, one of the interesting things is the open source technology space has really allowed for a lot of democratization in that area. So we're seeing programming being used by a much broader and code development by a much broader use case. And that's starting to seep into into the delivery models for all these organizations. And it's not just sitting again in that CTO or in that IT side of the house. It's being spread across. But I would say that for me, fundamentally, it's about people being more. The fundamental need is to be more curious, understand what's happening, and the greatest skill is that curiosity about what's possible. We've lived in a world in which we where we might have a piece of data that we might look and analyze. It could be as simple as in a spreadsheet or in a large scale graph of data. And we might can make up some assumptions about what it could happen. We're now in a process where we can test those theories incredibly quickly, apply them, and change them. And they're never ending, they're constantly evolving. And because of that, we have to think different about how we do every part of the organization. And so, as we think about engaging our customers, engaging our employees, engaging our families, AI has a role to play. And so, part of it is about getting immersed into what's going on. And I think Sadie, one great thing about Sadie is that she's also making courseware available so people can learn and in a much more democratized sense. The access and information that is available out there is really verbose. You can go take an MIT course today on YouTube and learn a lot about these things. So it's actually understanding the possibility that AI brings to the table.
I agree. And self learning, I think, is going to be the key to the future. We're all seeing so much disruption happening around us.
Absolutely.
As a consultancy and a system integrator in the data space, can you talk a little bit about some of the complexity, risks, and challenges that AI poses in the market today?
Yeah, it can get scary, right? We start thinking about risk mitigation. We hear about cyber threats. We hear about ransomware. The areas that you spend so much time talking about, how people are impacted through online, maybe, bad actors. And we all are being trained about phishing attempts. And so that's on the risk side. And then on the complexity side, I just talked about how we all have to be curious about and think about what's possible. Some of the rules, the foundational rules have changed. In some ways, it's almost like going back to the movie The Matrix. When you went in the Matrix, like you had to reimagine what was possible because that the normal rules didn't apply. And so that level of complexity on top of the risk can create a lot of friction and churn, and actually make some people take a step back and go, I'm not ready for this. The We have a much more positive approach to this. That taking a look at those risks and the complexity is in staring it straight in the face and working to build new models and new rules are ways that we can actually leap forward and take advantage of these things. Because let's be honest, the world is changing rapidly every day. And if we don't apply with the tooling that is available through AI and leveraging data, we can actually make a difference in our organizations, in our communities, in our products, in our services, in the success of customer success experience. When I call a company to try to solve a problem and AI is helping me get there versus me going through an old phone tree, being frustrated, even those moments of taking out, waiting on hold for 45 minutes to try to get something resolved with my financial institution, leveraging these tools, we can actually get life back so we can focus on things that are probably a little more important than whether or not, I lost a file someplace in the cloud somewhere. So I think, that's where we can take that positive message and really move the ball forward and bring everybody along. And I think that's probably the biggest risk in all of this is that um, people like yourself and Sadie that are so far ahead on this journey, we continue to need you to help bringing us along with you so that we all arrive there together. So thank you for the great work that you're doing and giving us access to some of these amazing people through your series.
Well, thank you, Russ. And I do agree, creating that frictionless customer experience, whether your industry is automotive or healthcare or public service, is going to be the next frontier of how we use these technologies to improve the lives of humans. And for people that want more exposure to demystifying this whole area, we also offer the Navigating Forward podcast on all the places that you get podcasts, where we bring in experts like Sadie, but from a wider variety of places, in order to make sure that you have content that can be more specific to your area of interest in your industry. So we really appreciate you joining us today. Russ, for folks that heard something today that kind of sparked their interest, maybe it was, how do I upskill my employee group at scale? Or maybe it was, how do I do a proof of concept with artificial intelligence for this particular business problem? Or where do I even start in figuring out where my data is even at before worrying about cyber attacks?
Well, that's
How are ways that people can connect with Launch
yeah.
Consulting to help with that work?
Well, the great news is that we've been helping companies on this journey across the globe do this. So we have a lot of experience. We also try not to just throw out big words and fear tactics. We are really pragmatic approaches. So we feel like we're really great place to go to if you're looking for a partner to help you along your journey to be data capable all the way to really successful leveraging new technologies. We go to start at our website at launchconsulting.com. We've got lots of information there. We've got some good videos. We've got some good content. And you can reach out and do a contact us form and provide some more information about what you're looking for. And one of the things that we find today, specifically around data, is we have an offering that allows people to do a workshop around their future state of data. And it's a great way to sort of look forward to then go, lean back and what do we have to do? What are the jobs to be done to get to that future state? And that's a really great way companies can engage with us so they can identify where's an optimal place where they can get to with some real tangible results about how to get there. So, and that could be across any part of your organization or the whole organization as one. So that's a great way.
Well, I can tell you, after 18 years of being in corporate America, having a roadmap of what future state is possible and some budgetary information about what it will take to get there is really the key to creating budgets for the moments that matter for transformation for the business. So for anybody that's interested in that, please reach out. You can also reach out to either Russ or myself on LinkedIn, and we are responsive on those platforms as well. And we really appreciate you joining us today. If you found this interesting, please consider joining us next week at this time for our LinkedIn Live series on Bold Women in Data with our host, Charlene Coleman. And we look forward to seeing you at the next Navigating Abroad episode release. Thank you.
Bye, Lisa.